to show you how we start to cut the different shapes, I thought it just made sense to start with the lowest number of sides illustrated in polygons. That's a pentagon. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a frame and format it for an 8x10 in landscape format. If you come down to the bottom chart, you'll notice that on an 8-inch we need 5 5/16 for our rabbet length. The material I'm using has 1 3/16 or 1 3/8 outside the rabbet. We add another 1 13/16 to the length. Now if we add those two dimensions, 5 5/16, 1 13/16, that says our outside length would be 7 1/8 inches long. That's how we plan our project. Now the first frame we're going to do is going to be a frame with flat stock. These are the simplest to build. You can work on one side of the blade simply by cutting face up, flipping the stock over, and cutting face down. Since we're doing a pentagon, we're going to set up on the line 5 sides. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our stock and we're going to cut the first end. We're going to measure along the piece. I need 7 1/8 finished. I'll allow 1/8 of an inch or so. I'm going to mark this board at 7 1/4. And then what I'm going to do is add a little extra, line up here at the edge of the platform. I'll move my stop back. And I'm going to come in. That's good. I'm going to set our fence. It's a lot easier to control rough cuts if you do it this way. We're going to butt into that. There's our 5 pieces rough cut. Now, the dimension mark that I have here gets lined up right at the edge where the saw cuts. Lock the stop. May as well use the clamp. Cut right on the mark. Flip these over. I'm going to take our 5 frame sides, line the corners as carefully as you can. Need a bigger clamping bench. There's our Pentagon frame. And the height measures right at 8 inches, just like we planned. Isn't that nice the way this worked? Now obviously this frame won't do you any good if you don't know how to put a panel inside it. And the odd numbers can be a bit of a challenge. Since nothing on this frame is parallel, we can't measure side to side, top to bottom, whatever. What we have to do on any odd-sided project is find the widest width as our first dimension, and then from the corner down to the center of the opposite side would be a line square to the first one. So what we're going to do here is the height, we're going to call it about a 1/16 over, which is perfect for clearance. Our width is 8 7/16. So the first thing we're going to do is cut a panel 8 1/16 by 8 7/16. Make your first cut, flip it over, and let's run the grain up and down. 8 1/16 for the height. Eight and 7/16 for the width. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to center the panel over the opening, and we're going to mark where it needs to be cut. That's actually a little bit on the long side. Okay, so we're going to take a 1/16 or so off. So we center this over the opening. We have to cut it here. Mark all the points where it needs to be cut. Now, when you do a panel, and most professionals say when you make a frame, it ought to be a 1/16 oversize anyway, right? But you want to leave some play. You don't want to have to force that panel in. You're going to end up blowing the joints on the frame apart. When I used to do Pentagons, when I first started, one of my techniques was to put one side of the frame against the backstop and pivot forward. But you notice that has us working clear off the scale, okay? If you're working a Pentagon and you want to make it easy, the easiest way to do that, take a piece of plywood, make sure that an edge is cut square to the side against the backstop. Come out to 18 degrees. That's the 10 line on the scale, the side where you cut 10 sides. And what you would do would be to recut that corner off. Now, there's a 72-degree angle change on a Pentagon, okay? 5 into 360, 72. If we bring the backstop back to our 0 and set this wedge in here like this, what it's going to do is, you notice now, the side of the frame is perfectly parallel to the cut of the table saw. And this allows us to work an awful lot safer than it would if we had the backstop out, whatever the heck it is, out there past 50 degrees. So to cut our panel, what we would do, we have 2 marks on this one side. We put that against our wedge, and if you cut this off a little, I wouldn't worry about it. You line your first mark right at the edge of the platform. We do one cut. That edge goes against the face. We do our second cut. We bring that edge against the face. We do our third cut. Bring that edge against the face. And do the fourth cut. We drop the panel in the back. It's as simple as that to cut a perfect Pentagon panel.